4 shots, one after the other, on a quiet residential street in West Norwood, South London. Then, silence. Not the silence of an empty street, the silence that follows something violent. Something that lands before anyone fully understands what just happened. No screams, no body on the ground. Just a white Audi sitting at the curb. Engine still running, bullet holes punched into the side. The gunman didn't wait. He already knew what he'd done, or thought he did. He and his rider were already moving. E-bikes, fast, quiet, absorbed into the dark of a December night in South London. When police arrived minutes later, they found shell casings scattered across the pavement. 4 of them. And a question that had no easy answer. Why fire 4 shots at someone, in cold blood, on a residential street, and leave with nothing to show for it? No confirmed target, no body, nothing. That question would take investigators somewhere they weren't expecting. Because this wasn't just a shooting, it was the moment an entire operation, one that stretched from the streets of South London to Southeast Asia, started to unravel. Subscribe if you're new here. This is the kind of story you want to follow to the end. Trust me on that.
There's been a lot of gang tension in this area at the moment. You're dressed in all black, therefore I believe that there's a potential chance you have weapons, okay? Okay, right, I am just going to cuff you just for the time being, okay? Just because you are on an e-bike, all right? Right, how old are you? 17. Right. You've also got a balaclava in your pocket, which also makes me suspect that you are involved in criminal activity, okay? And black gloves.
Rewind to earlier that evening. 2 e-bikes came down Norwood High Street, moving fast and deliberate. 2 riders, one carrying a bag. They weren't lost, they weren't passing through. They had somewhere to be. They turned onto Dunbar Street, a quiet road just off the high street, and spotted the white Audi parked at the curb. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Audi reversed. Hard, sudden. Straight into one of the bikes. The first piece of CCTV investigators pulled made it look like the driver was the aggressor, like the driver started it. That interpretation didn't survive long. When police arrested the Audi driver shortly after, they went through his phone and found something sitting quietly in his camera roll. Ring doorbell footage, captured by a camera on a nearby house. Wider angle, different perspective, a completely different story. The footage was clear. One of the riders crouched down beside the bag, reached in, stood up, raised both arms, extended, and aimed directly at the driver's seat. This was not a reaction. This was not impulse. This was planned. The decision had been made before they ever turned onto that street. The shots came. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shell casings rang off the pavement. The bikes accelerated, back onto the main road, gone within seconds. Nobody was hit, somehow. 4 shots, close range, a moving target trying to escape. Nobody hit. Detective Inspector Ray Sekalongo, who would lead this entire investigation, reflected on that later. Measured, precise. If you fire 4 shots at a vehicle that's trying to get away, what exactly do you think your intention is? There was no ambiguity in the question, and there was no ambiguity in the answer. The 4 shell casings were bagged, logged, and sent to the Metropolitan Police Forensic Firearms Laboratory. Each casing carried a mark on its base, rectangular, left by the firing pin at the moment of discharge. Forensic examiners read those marks the way others read fingerprints. Every weapon leaves its own signature, consistent, repeatable, identifiable. The weapon was identified as a Glock self-loading pistol. That identification mattered more than it might appear. For years, most firearms circulating on London streets had been a specific kind of problem. Converted blank firers, starting pistols, replica weapons crudely modified to fire live rounds. Officers had a name for them. Rebels, unreliable, inconsistent, often dangerous to the person holding them. In forensic tests, converted weapons frequently failed. Barrels ruptured under pressure, mechanisms jammed at the moment they were needed. But tighter legislation on convertible replicas had closed that supply, and organized crime adapted. Real handguns began appearing at scenes, factory-made, precision-engineered, smuggled in from Southeast Europe through established trafficking routes. The overall number of shootings hadn't dramatically increased, but the lethality rate had. When someone was shot with one of these weapons, they were far more likely to die. A converted weapon fired in a controlled test had its barrel rupture completely. The imported Glock performed with clean, devastating penetration. In the days after the shooting, the casings had been analyzed, the weapon identified. The shooter was still out there. No name, no face, no arrest. Then, a tip. Not from a witness, not from an informant, from another unit inside the Metropolitan Police. Officers monitoring social media flagged something, a music video, being filmed near Dunbar Street, around the same time as the shooting. On its own, that's a thin detail. Music videos are filmed all over South London constantly, but detectives pulled the CCTV from around the scene and went through it carefully, frame by frame, camera by camera, looking for anything that didn't fit. They found one thing. On one of the e-bike riders, a white stripe, running down the arm of a dark jacket, small detail, consistent across every camera angle they checked. That stripe became the thread, and when they pulled it, it led them to a Snapchat account. A man named Giovanni Bennett, 23 years old, from Woodside Green, Croydon. He had been posting content from the music video shoot in real time. That night, his face, clearly visible, his jacket, white stripe running down the arm, exactly matching what was captured at the scene, his location, his associates, all of it, publicly, for anyone to see. He had handed investigators his own identification. But Bennett wasn't the shooter, he was the second rider. So detectives kept going. They obtained Bennett's call data and examined his top contacts. Number 1, the person Giovanni Bennett called more than anyone else, Ayman Ben Halima, 21 years old at the time of the shooting, from Bloomhall Road, Norwood. Cell site data tracked both phones moving together after the shooting, same direction, same time, arriving at a single address in Greenwich. CCTV at that address captured both men leaving on the day of the shooting. D.I. Sekalongo was direct. I was confident we could arrest these two individuals. Ayman Ben Halima was already on court bail for a separate matter. That simplified the arrest. He was brought in and charged with attempted murder and possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life. His immediate response was indignation. "This is ridiculous. Why am I being arrested for something I haven't done?" Giovanni Bennett's arrest was a different kind of operation. The Glock was still unaccounted for. Nobody knew where it was. Armed support was deployed. When officers moved through Bennett's apartment, they moved carefully. What they found told a story that had nothing to do with a young man scraping by. Designer trainers, lined up, high-end bags, multiple, expensive, a significant amount of cash, possessions that don't come from a legitimate income. And then, in the corner of the room, a hard-sided plastic suitcase, airport check-in size. Officers opened it. Kilo packages of cannabis, multiple, wrapped, sealed, ready. And beside them, clothing, some of it from Thailand. That detail sat there quietly. And then one of the detectives remembered something. The music video. The same video that had first put Bennett on their radar. There was a lyric in it. Importing Cali overseas in suitcases. He wrote it, performed it, filmed it, posted it publicly. And in the corner of his own apartment, there was the suitcase. The boast had become the evidence. The lyric had become the confession. If this story is hitting different, drop a like. It genuinely helps more people find it. Investigators went deeper into the phones. What emerged confirmed the suitcase wasn't a one-off. This was not a local drug line. Cannabis was being imported from Thailand and the Far East, packed into luggage, carried into the United Kingdom through commercial airports, by drug mules, young women, recruited online. The messages used to find them were still on Bennett's Snapchat, public, casual, written like a lifestyle post. All I need is a ting that's willing to fly out the country for a week, 18 plus. Free flights, free accommodation, free food, cash at the end. No mention of what was going into the suitcase, no mention of customs, no mention of the mandatory sentences carried by drug trafficking convictions in Thailand. Sentences that have dismantled the lives of people who said yes to exactly this kind of offer, just a holiday, and the promise of easy money. Bennett posted these messages regularly, targeted young women specifically, on platforms where they already spent time. He was, by definition, a recruiter, and he rapped about it, filmed it, posted it, and got caught because of it. This case connects to something much larger. There are an estimated 6,000 active drug supply lines currently operating across Britain. 6,000, each structured like a business, a hierarchy, a supply chain, a territory, a set of rules enforced through violence. And at the very bottom of every one of those chains, children, as young as 12, most commonly between 15 and 17, groomed carefully, made to feel chosen, made to feel like they belong to something, before they understand what that belonging costs. Paid almost nothing for the risk they carry every day. While the person at the top of the chain lives quietly in a detached house in a part of town, nobody would ever connect to drug trafficking. The tools these networks use have evolved alongside everything else. E-bikes, fast, agile, able to vanish down any side street before a patrol car can respond. Real imported firearms, to hold territory and enforce silence. Social media, to recruit, to communicate, to advertise. It is organized, it is adaptive. It runs on the exploitation of young people who were never given another visible option. And it stays largely invisible, until someone makes a mistake. Bennett made his on Snapchat. A young man, we'll call him Dante, was kidnapped by his own crew over a debt. 200 pounds. They took him, kicked him, smashed a bottle over his head, set his face on fire, held him for 2 days. At one point, they took him to a rooftop. He thought that was where it ended. He said it simply, in the way people describe things they have lived with long enough that the horror has become familiar. I got tortured, basically, by my own friends. His own friends, the people who recruited him, who called themselves his brothers, who he answered calls from before he answered calls from his own father. He stood on that rooftop, crying, taking the hits, waiting for it to stop. Eventually, they let him go. He still owes the 200 pounds. He still walks the same streets. He still dreams about it. A man now running an intervention program called Be Heard spent years inside this same world. He knows what it costs, not abstractly. He paid it with his body, shot with a Smith & Wesson. The bullet is still in his chest. He lifts his shirt, shows the scar, shows the others on his back. He was 16 when someone recruited him. 1,000 pounds a month. Without really having to do anything. That is how it feels at the start. The man who brought him in was 23 years old. To a 16-year-old, 23 is a man. 23 is success. 23 is everything you're reaching toward. He became that figure for others. I had young people working for me, and I realized they were inspired by seeing me in the nice car, in the clothes. He knew exactly what he was doing. Find the ones from difficult homes, the ones without confidence, the ones quietly searching for someone older who sees them. I became the brother, the best friend, the person you rely on. And then, slowly, without announcement, the person you cannot leave, because leaving means betrayal, and betrayal doesn't end in an argument. It ends on rooftops, in emergency rooms, in cells. The system is designed to make exit feel unsurvivable. Debt keeps people locked in. Violence enforces loyalty. And by the time someone understands what they are inside, they're already too deep to walk away clean. Woolwich Crown Court. August 2025, Ayman Ben Halima sat and listened. The defense had been made. The gun was a prop. He didn't know. He believed it was fake. The prosecution didn't argue with the story directly. They walked through the evidence, shot by shot, 1, 2, 3, 4. At each one, the same question. What was your intention? The jury came back, guilty. Attempted murder. On the 28th of November, 2025, Ayman Ben Halima was sentenced to 24 years. Giovanni Bennett had already pleaded guilty to importation of cannabis and possession of criminal property. 5.5 years. A music video. Filmed on the same night as a shooting. A lyric about importing drugs in suitcases. A jacket with a white stripe, worn to both. Every frame posted publicly. Every post preserved. Every clip recovered and placed before a jury. This case did not begin with a detective's instinct or a witness stepping forward. It began with a stripe on a jacket and a man who couldn't stop posting. But the shooting, the drug line, the recruited mules, the children at the bottom of the chain, the controllers living quietly at the top. None of that began or ended on Dunbar Street. It is part of something operating across every major city in Britain. 6,000 lines, still running. The question is not only what happened in West Norwood on the 16th of December, 2024. The question is whether the system's built to respond. Justice, schools, communities, intervention are moving fast enough. Or whether organized crime has already built something those systems are still learning to see. If this story made you think, leave a comment below. And if you want more like this, you know what to do.